It's been roughly about 10 months since I got the Samsung Q60B, and if you're on the fence whether to get yourself one, you've clicked on the right video, so buckle up and let's go for the ride. Starting with the design, over the last 10 months, its minimal footprint has been an absolute joy to look at, and even though it's mostly made out of plastic, it feels super sturdy. Like most TVs nowadays, it carries on with a thin profile, but there's a slight bump towards the bottom where most of the hardware sits, and slightly above the bump, we have all the I/O, which I'll be talking about in just a bit. Going into detail, all the Q60B TV sizes come in at just an inch deep, with the exception of the 85-inch, which is 1.1 inches deep. I like the Titan grey bezel running around the TV, and Samsung took their design language a notch higher by ingeniously engraving their logo on this little bumper that has the power button underneath. Speaking of the power button, it's quite responsive, and over the last 10 months I haven't experienced any delays from the moment I turn it on to the image being displayed on the screen. More on the input lag when we get to gaming. Turning around, the inputs haven't had any issues since day one, although that's not quite conclusive since I've only been using the HDMI ports. Just a quick recap on what we get at the back for those who don't know. At the very bottom and just a tad bit to the right, you'll get the digital optical audio out and HDMI 3 port. Moving back in line, we have the antenna, which to be honest I've never really used. For those who've been around the block for a minute, I'm sure you remember at one point the AV ports used to give the best video quality before HDMI took over, and it's good to see the Q60B have in mind the old school tech enthusiasts. Right on top of the AV ports, you'll get HDMI 1, HDMI 2 ERC, commonly known as Enhanced Audio Return Channel, which allows you to send audio from your AVR or soundbar. Next up are the LAN cable port, USB 1 and 2. Right across we have the power compartment that has these screws underneath to help with cable management. Watching movies only the last couple of months has been great, but when it comes to video games, I've been locked at 60 frames per second owing to the fact that the HDMI ports are 2.0. Moving along, a lot of you have been asking how well the operating system functions and how easy it is to navigate through the home screen. Say no more. Samsung's TVs are run by the Tizen OS, which is a Linux-based open source web OS that supports a range of devices including TVs, home appliances, and a majority of the older Samsung mobile phones. The Q60B uses the refreshed version of Tizen, which looks a lot different from the previous gen on the likes of the Q60A. In my opinion, I find Samsung's Tizen OS a lot better than the likes of WebOS from LG, Roku, which is synonymous with TCL, Android TV that features in Philips, Sharp and some Hisense TVs, my home screen from Panasonic, Amazon Fire obviously from Amazon, VidaU specifically built by Hisense, and SmartCast from Vizio. Back to the Q60B, while some people have experienced some lag when navigating the home screen, I personally haven't experienced any of that, and scrubbing through the different features has been fast and snappy. Speaking of the different features, the picture settings would be one of the most visited, and judging from the inquiries in the comments, most of you are keen on knowing the ideal settings for the best picture quality. Out of the box, the colors are rich and accurate, and you'll also be getting a handful of picture modes to choose from, in addition to being able to adjust individual settings yourself. The panel it uses is a 60Hz panel that is edge-lit and uses Samsung Dual LED technology powered by the Quantum Processor Lite 4K. While perception is subjective, after 10 months of use, these are the settings I found to give the best picture quality. Having initially used standard mode when I first got the TV, movie mode has been my go-to the last 6 months, and to give you guys some perspective, I'll do a comparison between the different modes. Starting with a comparison between standard and movie mode, you can't help but notice how the image appears flat and with no color depth, whereas in movie mode the contrast and color depth look amazing. Comparing filmmaker mode to movie mode, off the bat you'd expect filmmaker mode to be better given that a lot of emphasis is put on color accuracy, contrast, image depth, etc when doing films, but that's not the case. Just like in standard mode, the image appears flat with no color depth, and switching to movie mode, you can see it starts to look better. Now, that in itself would do just fine, but if you're like me and want to take it a notch higher, you'll have to adjust the different parameters yourself. Case in point, I have my brightness set to 35, contrast set to 50, sharpness set to 10, color set to 25, tint and GR locked at 0. For the apply picture settings, I've got it on all sources. When it comes to the picture clarity settings, I prefer it on auto as it automatically recognizes fast moving objects on the screen, and the backlight behind the objects is adjusted accordingly. Having it in custom means you'll have to adjust the backlight manually, and chances are you won't be getting the backlighting right in most scenarios. With all the settings nailed, the images look good, but as good as the images are, there are a few aspects you'll want to take into account before choosing the Q60B. The blown fast moving object isn't quite as natural looking as it is on the Q80B and higher models, so sports fanatics like me would want to move up a few models, but then again, for the casual viewer, this isn't going to be that big of an issue. While on the topic of picture settings, we might as well talk about the different viewing angles and what position would give you the best quality. Unlike the OLEDs with infinite viewing angles, with the Q60B, when you move off to the side, it washes out and you start to lose the details of the picture, so dead center would be the sweet spot when consuming content. In saying that, it wouldn't be that big of an issue for the average consumer, but be sure to take into account where the TV is going to be installed relative to where you'll be sitting. In my case, it would be mounted on a wall in an upcoming bedroom makeover video. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, just take a moment to like it, as it helps in ways you can't even imagine. When it comes to burn-in, 10 months is long enough to give you guys my insights, but before we get into it, for those who don't know, burn-in is what happens when an image leaves a mark on your screen, regardless of what you're watching or doing. Luckily for me, I haven't experienced burn-in over the last 10 months, but for those who have, a probable cause would be leaving a fixed image on the screen for an extended period of time. For example, gaming user interfaces. The good news is though, OLED TVs are the most affected by burn-in. Let me know in the comment section if any of you has experienced burn-in. Having talked about gaming interfaces and burn-in, we might as well take a deep dive on how it's fared over the last 10 months when it comes to gaming. In reality, the Q60B isn't a gaming TV per se, but for the casual gamer it will do just fine. This is due to lack of features like 4K at 120Hz, the variable refresh rate, just to name but a few. Despite not being designed for gaming, features like auto low latency have been fun to use, and for those who don't know what auto low latency is, it is what happens when your TV automatically goes into gaming mode when a gaming system is detected. In summary, I'd say if you want to get the most out of your PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, you'll need to upgrade to the likes of the Q80B or higher, but then again, for the casual gamer who doesn't need all the next gaming features, the Q60B would work perfectly. When it comes to sound quality, this is another area where the Q60B struggles. For those who are used to good quality sound, you'd straight away pick it up, but for the average consumer, this would be non-existent. In saying that, I won't completely knock it down in this facet, because at moderate listening levels, it's well balanced, which is ideal for dialogue. For the bass lovers out there, it doesn't get very loud and it's quite flat on its own, just like most TVs. I'd suggest getting a soundbar or a dedicated surround system if you want to take your listening experience to the next level. As for the remote control, there have been a few issues on the responsiveness, and personally, from the last 10 months I can affirm I haven't had any issues in that regard. Design-wise, it's an absolute masterpiece with a sleek minimal aesthetic, not to mention the battery lasts for ages. Matter of fact, since unboxing it, I haven't juiced it up even once, and in the event that is required, I can either use a USB cable or through the solar panel at the back. Being the tech guy I am, I wanted to see how an old-timer would do, and to be honest, it's a lot easier navigating using this old remote. Take for example accessing the settings menu. With the press of a button, I'm right in, whereas with the new one, I kinda have to dig around the menu to get what I want. I guess that's why they say old is gold. Anyway, back to the video. I'm sure for those who are looking to buy a unit for yourselves, the warranty would be important in case anything happens. Lucky for me, nothing insane has happened, but in the event something happened, I'd prefer something longer than 12 months, given that most people use their TVs for a good number of years before thinking of an upgrade. Samsung, if you're watching this, please do something about that. Moving along, another aspect that a lot of people take into account before buying a TV is the price, and for the Q60B at the time of release, a 65-inch unit went for 1,900 Australian dollars, which is roughly 1,295 American dollars. But hear me out, as we speak, the same unit goes for 1,288 Australian dollars, which is roughly 855 American dollars. And with the end of financial year sales flying left, right and center, you could even get it for much less. For QLED TV of this quality, that would be an absolute steal, so I'll be sure to link them in the description box in case you want to get yourself one. Well, that sums up my long-term review of the Samsung Q60B, and if you got to this point of the video and found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it means a lot to me. To see another long-term review of my devices, check out this video. Till then, people of the internet, I'm signing out. See you on the next one.